Hello, everybody, and welcome to the unofficial first episode of Total Rewrite, the show where I go back to the drawing board of a film, short, special, book, or episode and basically rewrite the whole thing from the ground up. Today I'll be rewriting the third Equestria Girls short, Mirror Magic. The movie opens with Sunset Shimmer having a nightmare about some new magical threat that she can't clearly identify, though it seems to be speaking an odd language. The dream is vague in details, but it seems as though Equestria might somehow be in danger of this new threat. Before Sunset can glean any more details, the threat attacks her and she wakes up with a start. We then cut to Juniper montage working as a popcorn vendor, clearly hating her job. She keeps glancing over to an advertisement for the new Daring Do movie and her eyes keep going to the Humane 7 included in the corner. Angrily she goes over to it and turns it around so she can't see it from the counter. This doesn't really make her feel any better, so she pulls out a hand mirror and starts telling herself that she's better than this and will get better than this, that she'll make the main seven sorry they did this to her. Just then her manager appears behind her and tells her to get back to work and that there's a popcorn spill she needs to take care of. She quickly hides the mirror on a counter shelf and complies, though she gives him a whole manner of sneering while his back is turned. When no one can see it, some stray magic from the statue portal that we saw in the end of Legend of Everfree floats over to Juniper's hand mirror and into it. It glows a touch menacingly and a faint evil chuckle can be heard from the mirror. Later that morning, Sunset is writing to Twilight about her dream, but before she can get out any important details, she finds she's run out of paper in the communication journal. With no way to contact the one pony who might know how to deal with something like this, she decides it's time for her to go back to Equestria. She tries calling her friends to let them know what she's doing, but for whatever reason, all the lines are busy or they just won't answer. She tries texting them, but then her phone dies, so she goes out to them to tell them. She finds the Remain Six at the mall theater. Apparently Rainbow Dash has been building up that they're stars in the new Daring Do film, when really they're just extras in the background and only one of them has a speaking role. And suddenly everyone is giving them all the attention in the world. Everyone's been calling and texting them, and some of the Humane 7 have had to turn off their phones just to get a moment's peace. Rarity is wearing a hat and trench coat with sunglasses, though because she's still with her friends, who aren't in disguise, it doesn't work out that well. Rainbow Dash is lapping up the attention when Shimmer gets there, and Shimmer basically has to yell at them to let them know what she's doing. Meanwhile, Juniper isn't too far away and can hear Sunset yelling. At first, she gets really angry and is about to smash her hand mirror, but then a disembodied voice tells her to stop. She realizes it's the mirror and at first is terrified to find her own face talking back at her, but the mirror quickly appeals to her ego by saying that it wants to help her get back at the Humane 7, but that she needs to listen and follow its instructions very carefully. It tells her to follow Sunset, and although Juniper wants to get back at Rainbow the most, because Rainbow has been unintentionally rubbing it in so hard lately, the mirror insists Sunset has to be first. Sunset gets to the school statue portal and is about to enter, but pauses, remembering the last time she went through the portal, it was for selfish and evil intentions. However, she puts on a stern face and steps through. We can briefly see Juniper looking at her from around the corner, her jaw hanging low in surprise at what she's seen. Sunset arrives in Twilight's library and has a hard time adapting to her original equine body, trying to stand on two legs when her body is meant to be a quadruped. She encounters Starlight Glimmer, who is not only curious about some strange pony in the castle, but also that she keeps trying to stand on her hind legs. It takes a minute for Starlight to recognize Sunset, as she was described by Twilight, and soon gets curious about the EG world and wants to visit it. However, Sunset knows that there isn't time for that, as it would take too long for Starlight to adapt to a new body and setting, and the nightmare is something she just can't put off to the side, so she keeps asking for Twilight. Starlight says she can help, but Shimmer points out that humans don't have magic and thus, without a geode like the Humane 7 have, Starlight would be virtually powerless. Starlight then begins to say that if she can make some magical alterations, then she won't have to worry about that. But Sunset is quick to sarcastically ask if she's crazy and firmly tell her no, insisting that she needs to find Twilight, walking out of the library. Starlight looks disappointed, but then looks around her. When she sees that she's alone, she giddily steps to the portal. Meanwhile, back on the other side of the portal, Juniper hesitantly approaches the portal, the mirror edging her on. It tells her to hold it up to the portal and say a specific phrase. As Juniper reluctantly says it, the mirror says it along with her, but backwards. Magic begins to draw out from both the mirror and the portal, and when they connect the sky gets dark and magical lightning starts emitting from the mirror and portal. Juniper gets scared and stops saying the phrase, but by then the mirror no longer needs her to say it, repeating the backwards phrase. Back in Equestria, a face appears in the mirror portal in Twilight's library and starts saying the phrase forwards. Juniper tries to let go, but finds that she can't. She's terrified and screaming for help, but there's no one around to hear her. Inside the portal rift, Starlight is enjoying the hectic spiral until the magical interference hits her with immense turbulence. She tries using her magic to correct it, but the fact that she doesn't really know what she's doing, coupled with the fact that the rift is still distorting everything inside of it, she can't do anything. She screams in panic as a face forms within the rift, though somehow she manages to get through to the other side, although she does still end up landing on her face. Juniper is no longer screaming for help, as she is now saying the phrase forwards again, though this time it's clear she's not in control of her body. There's a flash of magical light and a sound of thunder, and then she disconnects from it, the portal glowing a sinister swirling teal color. There's a flash of magical light and the sound of thunder, and then Juniper disconnects from the portal glowing a sinister swirling teal color. Starlight looks up at Juniper to see the same swirling teal color in her eyes, with her lenses having been replaced with mirror lenses. Juniper looks down at Starlight and grins sinisterly, Starlight's terrified face reflected in her glasses. Starlight runs off, but because she's not used to her new form yet, she runs off on all fours. Juniper looks out after her, but instead of pursuing, she just smiles and says in the mirror's voice, "That's a good start. Just a lot more of that, and I'll have my revenge." Back in Equestria, Sunset stumbles her way through the castle, getting lost more than once because she's never been inside it before, until she runs into Spike, who, after a warm if awkwardly hurried reunion, guides her to Twilight. After another brief awkward reunion, Sunset properly explains the situation to her, and after a minute, Twilight teleports them both to the library. However, they are greeted by the face in the mirror portal who speaks in an odd backwards way that, while it is forwards, it sounds like it's actually being said backwards somehow. The face starts blasting the books in the library and turning them backwards, some disappearing completely. With the reference material either being distorted or erased, Twilight decides that they need to go to the top, Princess Celestia, for help. Sunset's heart leaps into her throat at this revelation, but Twilight doesn't seem to notice, dragging her off to Canterlot as a barrage of mirroring lasers just barely miss them on their way out. Back in the EG world, Starlight has been running all over the place, still on all fours, looking frantically for Sunset's friends, questioning almost everyone she comes across. Because of her odd and frantic behavior, most just nervously avoid her, causing her to yell in frustration, "Why won't anyone talk to me?" only to realize everyone else is walking upright and she's crouched down like a dog. At this, she awkwardly laughs and attempts to stand, though she's just as awkward at it as Twilight first was. Still, she is determined, and so continues on, but starts a trip, followed by an off-screen crash coupled with Starlight's panicked yelling. Back at the portal, Juniper observes as books start flying through the portal and into Canterlot High. She says that while messing with the books is a good prank for a fool, it's not nearly good enough. So she draws more power from the portal and hurls it at Canterlot High, teal magical energy slowly enveloping the building. "Now that's more like it," she says gleefully and then walks off, heading back towards the mall. Twilight and Sunset make it to Canterlot Castle and quickly find Celestia. The princess is shocked silent at the sight of her former student, who can't bear to look at her. Twilight interrupts the emotional silence to give her the rundown of the situation. Although still surprised by the presence of Sunset, Celestia keeps her focus and tells the two what she knows. According to one of Starswell's journals, there was a pony sorcerer named Miros, who had been experimenting with mirrors. Unfortunately, his experiments kept going out of control and he couldn't be bothered to care. Things in ponies kept getting multiplied, others kept getting reversed, while even more things ended up inside of mirrors and two-dimensional. Although he wasn't around for very long, he was nonetheless a menace that Starswirl had no choice but to confront and put a stop to. Twilight asks how he did it, but Celestia says that no pony knows, and she herself never found out just what Starswirl did, only that Miros was never seen nor heard from again. She tells Twilight if Miros is back, then she needs to gather her friends and disable the portal before there can be more damage. Back in the EG world, the attention the remaining six are getting is still in full force until a frustrated Applejack finally blurts out that they're not even the focused stars in the movie, just extras who stand there without any lines. Disappointed and annoyed, the crowd soon disperses, much to Rainbow's disappointment and frustration. She begins to chew out AJ, and AJ begins to fire back, but their argument is cut short by the sound of a panicked yelling and a crash. They run out to find Starlight Glimmer upside down on a large tree pot, her legs waving about in confusion. They pull her out and she apologizes, saying that she's not used to her new legs yet. A confused Pinkie Pie asks if Starlight's really a mermaid, to which Starlight befuddledly says that she's from Equestria, at which Pinkie asks if Starlight is a seahorse. Fluttershy interrupts them to ask if Starlight is one of Pony Twilight's friends, to which she replies, "Student, actually." Starlight quickly tells them what she knows, and they all head to the statue portal. Twilight and Celestia are flying to Twilight's castle with Shimmer riding on Celestia's back. Sunset tries awkwardly to start a conversation with her ex-mentor about the last time they spoke, but just as Celestia is responding, the conversation is cut short with a loud gasp when they get to Twilight's castle. Similarly, the remaining 7, Starlight being supported by Rainbow Dash and Applejack since she can't run without tripping over herself, get to Canterlot High and gasp in complete shock. Where their high school once stood now stands a brilliant blue and purple crystal castle, while in Equestria, where Twilight's castle once stood, now sits a high school, both of which have teal magic slowly leaking from their foundations. Sunset and the princesses enter the high school, completely unable to explain how this could have happened. Everything seems to be in place, except for the fact that the entire school is now reversed, and the same goes for Twilight's castle, as Starlight identifies the balcony that's usually on the left side of the castle, now on the right. While Twilight starts to panic, a steadfast Celestia tells her to go get her friends and bring them here, which Twilight obeys. Celestia and Sunset meanwhile go to search for the mirror portal, as Sunset is certain such a switch as this couldn't be possible if the mirror had vanished. They find Spike, but for some reason he's acting like a dog and speaking backwards, and obviously he's panicked. Outside the school, buildings start getting replaced with human structures and ponies start running in panic on their hind legs. Back in the EG world, the remaining 6 are still in awe and shock when Juniper appears behind them. Somehow they didn't pass her on their way back. Took different routes, I guess. Saying that she's been looking for them and was surprised not to find them basking in their fame where she left them. Applejack looks at Rainbow Dash with a raised eyebrow, to which Rainbow Dash frowns back at her in annoyance. Sidewise notices that many of houses behind Juniper have been replaced with equestrian houses, and some people are even running around panicked on all fours. When she asks what Juniper did, Juniper chuckles in Miros' voice and says, "This," pointing a finger at them as though it were a gun, and suddenly magic surges from the ground into Sidewise, causing her to drop her backpack as the magic transforms her into humanized Pony Twi, who is startled and confused, now only able to speak backwards. Most of the remaining 5 back off, but Pinky gets replaced by Pony Pinky, with the same speech problem. Soon after, the rest are being switched with their counterparts while Starlight hides behind a statue portal. Spike the dog crawls out of Sidewise's backpack, awoken from a puppy nap, apparently, but now he's standing on his haunches, though he can still speak normally. Celestia and Sunset find the portal in the school library suspended in midair as magic seeps from it into the school structure. Celestia steps forward and demands Miros stop this insanity, saying that he's hurting both ponies and other species and threatening not just 1 but 2 worlds. Miros, of course, just laughs at her and refuses, saying that he's well aware and just doesn't care, and that unless Celestia can present Starswirl to Miros, the Mirror Sorcerer will continue on his merry way until both worlds are entirely polygonal and ever-shifting, basically kaleidoscopic. Think the Mirror Worlds from Doctor Strange. Celestia says that she can't allow him to do that, charging her horn magically in preparation to strike. Miros gives what may be a shrug, he's still a face in a mirror at this point, so it's hard to tell, and says, "So be it," then blasts Celestia into a 2-dimensional image on the floor. Within that image, Celestia begins to shrink so we can see that she's standing in a blank world, her form outside the image now acting as a window. Suddenly the window begins to move on its own and stands up. Shimmer stares in shock as the 2D window shaped like Celestia flips around to reveal Miros' face where Celestia's should be. Within the window, Celestia writes, "Run," with her magic, and Sunset Shimmer turns and flees just before the Mirror Master can blast her as well. Back in the EG world, Juniper Miros is laughing over the confused and distressed main 6 as 5 of them fumble around in human form. In various ways, Juniper turns them 2-dimensional and traps them in a singular mirror until Pony Twilight is left, trying to run for the portal. However, Juniper then causes the ground beneath Pony Twi to flip up in front of her mirror, causing her to smack into a wall of grass and finds herself on the ground as if she'd fallen. However, she's now flat and banging against a glass surface. Juniper Miros picks up the glass mirror and reveals that Starswirl the Bearded had defeated him by using his own mirror magic against him and imprisoning him within his own enchanted mirror, which could see into parallel worlds. An unexpected side effect of which being that now the mirror could be used to travel to these parallel worlds. He reveals that each time someone passes through, Miros learns a lot about them in the process, as it's his magic that also alters their forms. Because of this, he learned about the elements of magic as well as the geodes from the EG world, and now wants to use them to become more powerful and restore his true form. All the while getting revenge on Starswirl by ruining the 2 worlds he has lived in. Juniper Miros then merges Twi's mirror prison with the other one and says that all he needs now are their counterparts. Unbeknownst to him, Starlight has managed to collect Spike the dog and head for the castle. In Equestria, Sunset manages to escape the high school and find the bona fide main six, though they of course can only speak backwards and are still not accustomed to their equine forms yet. Try as she may, Sunset cannot communicate with them, as they can also only understand backwards speech. And then Miro strikes, using flipped-up mirrored surfaces coming at the Humane Six like a wave of broken glass. Sunset and the others run, but because she can't communicate with them, she can't warn them of dangers in time, and they end up all captured while Sunset herself does manage to escape. Now with the power of both the elements of harmony and the EG elements of harmony, the geodes, most of them anyway, Miros' power increases and suddenly both Equestria and the EG worlds start merging, in such a way that reminds you of the worlds from Doctor Strange. Again, kaleidoscopic. And Miros merges with Juniper Miros and comes out looking like a weird image of Juniper distorted into a centaur-like shape, complete with alicorn wings and a horn. Of course, Miros realizes that he's one geode short and his eyes immediately turn towards Shimmer, and a chase ensues. Shimmer manages to evade him for a time, but the new combined world is so twisting and ever-changing that he's practically on top of her soon enough. Oh, and along the way she collected Dragon Spike to save him from falling to a potential death. However, just before he can mirror trap Sunset, she runs into Starlight just as a mirror springs up between them and something really weird happens. Not only do the two become two-dimensional, but they also become both their front and back ends. Humanize Starlight at one end and Pony Sunset on the other. When they're moving forward or backward, technically it's both forward, they're two-dimensional from the side, but when they're moving sideways, they're two-dimensional from the front. And the same thing happens to the spikes. Naturally, it takes some getting used to, but at least Sunset hasn't been actually captured by Miros yet. That said, though, Miros is still watching all this and is naturally furious, so the chase for Sunset continues. But this time Sunset is merged with Starlight. The chase that follows I cannot really describe, but I can say it involves a lot of 2D, 3D tricks. Think a lot of Paper Mario stuff, including them needing to change bodies every once in a while. Sunset has equine speed and use of magic, while Starlight has human flexibility and greater use of hands. And both need to verbally help the other with these traits, while the world around them distorts as Miros tries to capture them. Spikes even tries to buy them time by standing in Miros' way, but it gets about as well as you'd expect. He gets captured and locked in the same prison as the main and Humane Six. Finally, Miros has them cornered and it looks like it's curtains. That is until Celestia manages to communicate to the both of them from within Miros by using her magic to blast through the image of Juniper so that she can be seen by Sunset and Starlight, and tells them that strength and magic alone cannot defeat him, so they should try reasoning with not just him, but Juniper as well. Both Sunset and Starlight try appealing to both villains, saying that they themselves are former villains and ones who understand what it's like to be driven by revenge, but that revenge is hollow and will only get you so far. In the end, while Sunset cannot appeal to Miros, Starlight does succeed in getting through to Juniper, who, I honestly have no real idea how, separates herself from Miros. Without a connection to the EG world, Miros thus has no control over it, and the two worlds separate, along with anything from either world now no longer being in Miros' possession. Long story short, Miros gets sucked back into the mirror portal, and all normalcy is restored. Sunset and Saitwai combine their geode powers to wipe the memories of everyone caught in the crossfire, while Celestia and Twilight do the same for Equestria. Juniper Montage is let off the hook and forgiven and willingly goes back to her job as a snack food vendor, while Twi suggests that Starlight stay in the EG world to get accustomed to it, and Sunset Shimmer gets a new communication journal. Before Sunset heads back to the EG world, Sunset at long last confronts Celestia about their last encounter and tearfully apologizes for walking out on her the way she did. Celestia says that she's long since forgiven her and that she is so happy to see that even out of her tutelage she's learned so much and come so far from the selfish pony she used to be, and that she couldn't be any more proud of her former student than she is now. The two part ways on good terms, and the Humane Seven go on to show Starlight Glimmer around their world. So that was my first episode of Total Rewrite. I plan on doing quite a few more later on, but for now, let me know what you think. I apologize for the bad audio and line reading, and the mic quality. I'm not exactly that high-tech, and I'm obviously not the best voice for reading out long stories like this, but either way, let me know what you think. Please try to be constructive, and yeah. I'll see you next time. This is Torrid Prime 217, signing out and reminding you to please, brony responsibly.